Now, you've decided that JPM sounds like an interesting add-on, but you're still unsure about how it actually works, or whether it works at all, because to be honest, it sounds too good to be true, and it might be one of those bogus add-on which looks great on the outside but functions poorly on the inside. So let's dig in with how to actually use this thing. For the, for the basic version, we've got four panels: File Manager, Bone Manager, Poses, and Pose Details. We have also designed the panels to have a top-down approach. We start at the top and we finish at the bottom. Before we start anything, for this entire demonstration, I'm gonna use my Athena rig, which itself is built with a rigging add-on which comes with Blender Rigify. Okay, with that being said, let's start the technical instruction for the basic version. So, we're gonna start the entire thing with the File Manager. It's where all of our post files will live. Inside it, we've got another two subpanels: export and import. For the export, we just have to decide in what folder we want to save the poses. What about the import subpanel? Well, this is the first time you're using this, so you don't have to bother with the import subpanel for now. We'll go back at it later. Next, going down to Bone Manager. This is the melting pot where we're gonna cast and create all of our poses. The first thing we need to do is to select the rig we're gonna pose. After that, we're gonna register all the bones we want to be in. You're gonna hear the word register a lot in this technical instruction. Registering is basically a process where we put the bones inside the selected rig on the scene through this Bone Manager panel. By doing so, JPM will know what bones it should record the bone transform property from. Here's the easiest way to register the bones. Just select all the bones we want to register in our scene and click this button, Register. Voila! All of the selected bones are now registered. The way JPM registers the bones is actually using the rig's bone hierarchy, which is quite handy because it goes from the highest parent to the lowest child. As you can see right now, in my case, it registers from the bone at the highest bone hierarchy, which is the root, and down to the lowest, this thigh IK target. Then, if you like, you can check the bones and see if you've registered all the bones you wish to register. Anyway, if you still have doubts and questions about how to register the bones properly, I've created a video specifically to help you do that. Please check the unofficial technical instruction down below. Now, the bones have been registered properly. The next thing we're gonna do is actually to have fun and make poses. The first pose you definitely should make is the rest pose. Right now, all the bones are in their rest position, so we just have to click this button, Save Dataset, and name it with a descriptive name that you prefer. You see, I know that naming convention is a confusing and complex subject, so if you still wonder about it, I've included that along with how to register bones properly in the unofficial technical instruction, so please check it out. Now, with that's done, I know that you may be wondering, why do we need a rest pose in the first place? Here's why it's always a good idea to make the rest pose first. Because later, we will move around the bones and create poses with it. But once it's done, normally we want to make them go back to its rest pose. How do we do it then? As of right now, we can always click this button, select, to select all of the registered bones, and go to Pose, Transforms, and Clear All. Sure, we can do it that way, but it's still 4 clicks away. Now, compare it with us having saved the rest pose beforehand, and we just have to click the rest pose in Pose Panel, and all of the registered bones will go back to its rest pose. That is a very handy thing, isn't it? So, we've got our rest pose, and we can go on making an actual pose. Let's move this around, and once we're done, we just have to click this button again, Save Dataset, and that's it. Of course, now we can go back and forth between the rest pose and this crude looking pose. However, before we dig deeper into the pose panel, let's bring in the real poses I've created beforehand for the Athena rig. Importing is the thing we've skipped earlier, and because our pose panel is still rather empty and making a good pose takes time, let's bring in some poses. For this demonstration, I have created 10 poses for the Athena rig, which we can import right now. To do that, we've got 2 options. First, we can import it by files. So, we've got 10 poses in this folder, but right now, let's say we only need 5 of them. By importing by files, we can just do that, and it will let us choose the 5 poses that we want to import. Second, we can import it by folder. It's the exact opposite to the first option, because if we want all of the 10 poses, then we can just import it by folder. As you would have noticed, we don't have any duplicates, even though we've actually imported the same thing. This is another advantage of JPM in that we've eliminated the ubiquitous phenomenon of having duplicated poses. Now, the last panel for the basic version is the pose details. And by the looks of it, it may seem like a small thing, because inside we cannot really do anything with it but read it. But actually, and technically, it's pretty important. We wouldn't need it when everything works perfectly, but when it's not, it's gonna be the first thing we will check. And why is that? Pose details is basically a file viewer. Remember that when we save a pose, we're basically saving the bone transform property to an external JSON file. And that bone transform property includes 4 things: location, rotation, the rotation order, and scale. Of course, if you're a tech savvy, you can just open the JSON file here, and you can totally see what's inside plain and clear. As you can see, for example, inside the pose one, we have the hips' bone transform property here. Location, rotation, the rotation order, and scale. But if you're just a normal user who doesn't really bother with technical stuff, you don't really have to open the JSON file to figure out the saved bone transform property. We can do it right here in this pose details panel. So how do we access it? To do that, we have two options. First, the simplest way is we can just click the pose in the pose panel, and the pose details will list the pose's properties automatically. Second, we can click the pose not inside the pose panel, but inside the file manager panel. It would do the same thing as clicking the pose from the poses panel, but the difference is, as you would have probably noticed, when we click the pose from the file manager panel, it doesn't load the pose onto the rig. The first option is the easiest and the simplest way of doing it, but the second option is the cleaner option, because if you'd like not to mess around with your scene, just for the sake of checking the bone transform property, you can then just choose the second option. And yeah, I guess that's it about the entire 4 panels. The next thing we're going to talk about is these 3 buttons.